What's up? I've got a little idea for a painting. I went for a walk yesterday and I took some pictures of some landscapes near me. And I've got an idea. I kind of want to do a smilodon, and I've got a decent looking landscape. So I'm just going to sketch in a bit of an idea of what it's going to look like first, get a little bit of an idea for the composition. And it's kind of like little trees. It's on a hills type landscape, and we've got kind of little trees going up here like this, and then a bit more of them because there's like a hill in the background. I can maybe show you the reference image once it's completed. I think that's what I'll do. I'm just going to work into sort of basically I've already kind of feel like there's kind of this sort of background of trees. I'm not going to worry about getting everything perfect, but I quite want it to look have a nice kind of realist kind of look to it. So I definitely want it to look, frame of the picture to look good, and I think a lot of that's going to come down to how effectively I've done the landscape. So I'm really just, to be honest with you, what you can do in something like this is just kind of get the outlines of things, and then you're looking at the right positioning for where everything should be. Get good outlines in. I find it's quite helpful, especially with a painting. I mean, I'm painting from a photograph, so the background is not as. It's probably what I should just completely focus on now today. I'll see how far I get with this anyway, with this initial sketch. This is mainly just to kind of get a basic block outline for everything is. There's a lot of trees in the background here, which I'm hoping when I paint in I can sort of just keep them quite loosely painted, not have loads and loads of detail, just use different light textures with the paint and have a few different tones, keep it all quite similar tones. They're all in sort of a lighty, sort of greeny, grey and silvery orange colour. Right now it just looks like I'm drawing random squiggles, but it's mainly just like get an idea for the frame of the photo, because actually this hill in the background is covered a lot by different trees at different levels, which I find quite cool. Like tree there, and sort of like with any kind of trees and forests and stuff, the further you look in, the darker it becomes, because the trees are sort of blocking parts of the light with their leaves. And it was quite a nice walk I went on yesterday, because we're now late summer, early autumn. It's almost my favourite time of year. I actually quite like autumn as a time. It's quite a reflective time of year, I think, where you can see where you've come and look back on parts of the warmer months which you've enjoyed, or struggles. I find a lot of the time with my mental well-being, I find the summer months quite difficult, which is quite odd for people. Usually if you have a kind of seasonal struggles with your mental health, which is quite a common thing for people to have it, but I think it's probably more usual for people to feel it more in the winter months. But I'm more of a cold winter month kind of person, and I find that a lot of the time for me, my hardest points in the year are in the summer. So I find usually when it gets to this point in the year, I start to get a bit more, I feel a bit more relaxed and feel more calm within myself. So not everybody's like that. Some people probably dread the colder months. I think if I was a bit older, the struggle becomes a bit more realistic as you get into winter and it starts to get colder and you've got achy bones and things like that. But I'm still relatively young, so I've got a bit more. I struggle with probably the excess of emotions in the summer months. I think I can get quite eccentric, which is usually ends up in me putting myself in silly situations. But you live and you learn. So I think I've kind of got this landscape now padded out. I just want to make this tree a bit more stand out. These two trees for me stand out quite a bit. I feel I get the basic shape of some of the trunk in there. Some of these will help, some of the branches. Because we're getting there with that now, I think. Let's see. Kind of got a bit of a tree landscape sketched in, which is what I'm going for. And I think my plan was probably to paint the landscape and then stick my smilodon in the foreground. But it is quite tempting to sketch one in now, but I wanted to find a couple of reference images and look a bit more detail. So I think do the background first. I'm going to take a little break now and then start painting. Well, I'm pretty much ready to start painting this. I'm just thinking of the best method of doing so. Probably put the lighter tones in first, which is kind of, there's a lot of this kind of ochre kind of light, dusty, browny colour, almost yellow, which is all on the foreground, all in this section here. Just kind of like dry grass, fair bit of dry grass there, and up here there's a little bit as well, similar colour. I think I'm just going to sort of haphazardly start putting paint on there. So we're going to need some yellow, I think a little bit of yellow, but the colour is very almost white and brown, so I just get a tiny bit of red, mix the yellow and the red with some white. Is the plan. kind of thinking I should put the trees in first, to be honest. It's let's see what this looks like. I really shouldn't be mixing this with, I should probably use the other brush to mix this colour up. If anything, I think dab red in there. Let's remove the green for now. We're not going to be using it at the moment. I got that, and then I actually think just loads of white. Oh, I've not used white yet. That's amazing. On my last painting I didn't use any white. That's got to be almost sacrilege. I'm not using a white on the painting. Suppose it can be done. I'm straight away using white on this one. I think, well, I'm going to try to. And it's kind of like, I'm not really sure if I'm going to get the effect desired by doing this. Oh no, that's kind of the colour we're after. Already. I'm not going to worry too much about it being the perfect colour, but then just chuck it in. In fact, it really needs to be more white than that. But where I've sketched out bits, I'm leaving that blank because a lot of little outlines of things, they're in green. It's definitely looking a bit brighter than it should be, but a lot of this foreground is, I'm not going to really get. Put this big rock in here. If anything. It's not necessarily a bad idea, even just on any painting, just to go over the canvas with white. I feel like that's a bit more better, a bit more of the tone we're after. Put a bit too much yellow on there initially. I'm not going to worry too much about detail at the moment. Just going to get the basic colours on there. I can start adding some green and things. Doing the foreground first just because that's the bit you first start to notice on the picture. And actually there was a bit too much light coming through the window there, I couldn't see the screen I'm working off. That's alright. Some bits are actually whiter than others, or less yellow you could say. And actually I will add in a few flecks of green maybe. Oh, we'll do that in a minute. Let's just make sure we've got all this bit fleshed out. Okay. mixing, I think because of the way the light is, you're mixing this same colour into the green. Some of the trees are quite palely white green, but I'm just going to sort of, look at that, that's a bit too fluorescent. The kind of tops of the trees have this kind of silvery tone to them. And there are darker bits in amongst the sort of the shadows. It's not going to be a complete match for match on the colour scheme. I never really do with many of my paintings, but if anything I can just go over where the dark bits are. It really should be darker green. This is really quite a bright green. I'm just using straight out the packet green here for this section, but I think it will do the trick for the sort of style of the piece I'm going for. It's not completely realism as such, but I just wanted a kind of realistic vibe to a certain degree. And the trees behind are darker, and then these ones out in the foreground have this really kind of pale aspect to them. Especially at the top, they have this kind of silvery kind of thing going on with them. A lot of this boils down to really blending in the different shades of the trees. God, I can't see that very well. Let's just angle that a bit this way. I might have to draw a curtain just so I've not got too much light coming in through the window. This is the thing about working from a photograph at home and rather go out and just painting it. You do lose a fair bit of the ambient setting of what's going on, but actually in a way this kind of is making me pick out the tones a bit easier by having a slightly more contrasting like I say, it is kind of pretty much a full-on border of green and trees, but they do have different tones. And actually, there is a slight on these ones here. I'm not doing those ones yet because they have quite a bright orangey kind of little overlay to them, but on the top, whereas some of the ones in the background are a bit more paler colour with the highlights you get from them. But a lot of it does. I really should have started completely at the back with the trees because they're really dark. See, try not to get too lost in where I'm going with. You see what I'm painting at the moment. I'm gonna add in the kind of like little hedges. These things are like little hedges here. Bits of bush because they're just bushes really more than anything. And they have these highlights to them as well. I quite like this brush actually for doing backgrounds on pieces. It's quite big. You can get quite a lot of reach with the colours you're doing. You don't have to mix up what you're doing too much. And this one is actually quite silvery. Kind of got this kind of to it. I don't want to actually have something too thick because I'm hoping that I'll put some stuff in the foreground at some point. There's actually multiple, and I'm just going to go for it, just start going a bit more gung-ho with it. That's the correct word. Well, like this one here, so this kind of, whoa, too much, whoa, way too much. It's almost, it started to turn the colours on it, or just beginning to turn from green to red and orange and brown, which I suppose it's a nice thing about living in this country. You do get a good bit of change in the scenery throughout the seasons. And actually this one here is actually in front of that one. There's a similar kind of effect going on. And then we have this another palery, silvery, greeny one right on the edge of the composition. But then again, I say I start putting it in and I start noticing other colours. I suppose this is kind of a photograph, gone from photograph to impressionism technique. If you're familiar with impressionist painting, I think they did a lot of work from out and about and having to be swift in their creations, just so they could capture the sort of light at the specific times of the day. But luckily for me, I've got a photograph to work from, so I've got a good snapshot. I don't really need to rush, but I quite like working with a bit of speed when I'm painting. I probably should be trying to mix in a few different tones here. Got a bit more of a darky green here, which is kind of going to add a bit more difference to the bushes. You've got to make them actually look like bushes. And so it's coming along. And this bush here has a good bit of yellow on it. And I've added some red because it's got berries on it, this bush. Oh, hello sir, what you doing? Yeah, the red there was a mistake really. I'm going to try and rectify it by loads of yellow. And this here, there's actually a big rock here. I've also added loads more water to my brush, which is going to be Could be a bit of an issue. I'm just going to add in a bit more now to the foreground while I've got this colour going. And actually there is a big rock there, but I've realised that rock, I'm going to use a thinner brush because there's a bit more detail in these bits of green. I'd like to kind of capture a bit of the kind of fern and a bit more contrast with the dark. It's all well and good using that. Like a little bit of a ridge here. That in. In actual fact, I'm going to try and add some of the trunks of these trees in. There's one here. Just chuck it in there. And it actually kind of has a kind of a something like that. Well, that's not quite right. Something like that. There we go. Like this one here. I think. Let's add this one in. That's a bit too big. That's a bit too big, that trunk, I think, for how far away it is. That's alright. I'll add another little trunk in here and just give it a bit more depth on that one. It's coming along. We're coming along there. And there's this tree here has got something like that. So it does become really dark going into the background here, so you can't really see much of the trunks. There is a bright white trunk, which I'm going to leave for now. I'm going to start adding in some more dark green into sections where I realise actually it's very dark. Very dark in here. I'm not going to add anything darker than the dark green on the background, but just try and get the contrast. You see it's very dark in that section. And although I'm using quite a bright green, it's the darkest tone I'm going to use for this, just because it will give it, well, one, it's easier than faffing around trying to get the right shade of green, but also I'm not sure how necessary it is for the start of the piece I'm going with. And also here, well, actually it might be necessary for this section, but sometimes just adding a bit of yellow is giving it a bit more of a realistic greeny tone, which is what I'm doing here. And actually I think I should be using a smaller brush for this bit, but that's alright. Like, you probably didn't see me do that bit, but that's just the hill in the background, and it has another row of trees. In fact, I will use a small brush. We'll use a small brush and just show you a bit more of that while I'm doing it. Because actually you can't really, there's a bit more of this kind of reddy greeny tone on top here as well. That's too dark. But actually this green goes all the way right down here. And then there's gaps where you can see we have that same kind of white yellowy colour. Which I'm going to mix some more of because I've already used those up. Oh. So just grab a bit of that yellow and a bit of the white. We've used quite a bit of white, haven't we? And just at the top here, there's more of that field. And actually the trees should go all the way up there. How's that looking? It's looking alright. And I'm quite liking just how this is turning out already. I'm just almost tempted just to leave as is. But there's definitely more to do on this background. I think I can do this with just all the paint I've got on my palette still. I'm just going to go for it now and just kind of, I'm straying more away from the reference I think now for a bit and just adding things, just taking a bit of inspiration. Got quite a lot of water on my brush now, so I can get a bit more blending different sections, and I think using the thinner brush as well. Gradually things in. And the trees do follow a nice line down here, down to here. And there is actually another tree over here. Or group of trees even, that must be. And up here we've got these that look almost like very distant pine trees. And they've got like these little kind of triangle bits going on here. And yeah, little triangle things. And then we add some green in. More green, green everywhere. I'm just filling this section in here, which is all kind of dark green behind this tree, which is in the foreground. But I'm just going to sort of it's looking quite illustrative rather than super hyper realism, but it's kind of the style we're going with. Who knows, maybe the tree line looked different during the era of the smilodon. Who's to be a guess, I don't know. And we'll work from there like that. Do a bit more bits and bobs. Working a bit more darker bits into this bit here. Some of the trees in the foreground do stand out a fair bit more. What do I do with that green? I'm kind of tempted to add a bit of blue or something actually and make the green a bit more darker. But like I say, we're going for a distinctly more illustrative look. I've decided now. And this here is a big... In the distance the trees just look like massive bushes. So that's what we're going with. There's certain ones I feel could look more tree-like. This one has very white leaves, almost white, silvery green. They're kind of falling down a bit. And it's the same actually with this one over here. And you'll be able to see when I get the trunk in there on that one. There are darker sections though to it. For me this is the one that really stands out, this one here. I think it's because of these highlights over the top on it. I'm not really working into this with a specific idea or method, I'm just kind of going with the flow. It's not necessarily a bad thing to do always, but not always, but at least for painting it's quite a good idea, just to, where your eye takes you, work on that and see where you get from it. Got to be careful not to stare at the picture too much I'm working from. It's a good idea to, if you're working from an image, to be constantly making sure you're looking at where you're painting as well as looking at what you're working from. It's kind of a fine balance. There is some kind of yellowy bits, yellowy greeny bits on this one as well. This particular one. So kind of just mixing and matching and going with the flow a bit. Because the leaves are really only slightly starting to turn at this time of year. They're pretty green still. And we'll just add some dark bits down here. I definitely feel that darker trees could do with a little bit more of a highlight system, shall we say. I feel like the highlights on the ones in the background look more yellow and red compared to the ones at the foreground, which look quite white. Over here, this section here, you have quite a reddish tone. It's obviously a different type of tree. Some trees do lose their leaves a lot sooner than others. I'm not sure why, they just do. There is probably a scientific reason why, but I am not the person with that know-how at this current point in time. But any of you learn, that could be a little bit of fun for someone, working out the reasoning behind trees turning different colours sooner rather than others. Do you know what, I'm like almost satisfied with this background now. I'm just going to fill in bits now. It's coming along. Might be time for another break. Maybe. I think my tea's gone completely cold at this point in time. Just filling in these sections now. I've got this yellow and this yellowy white colour now. It's turning more of a paley green, but I'm just going to fill in some of the white bits. I'm straying a bit from the original image now, but I think it's fine. This is a green patch. A green patch down there. And think in terms of a background for a piece, this tree here is got too much in the way of brush strokes. Doesn't really look like that. Oh, we got a this tree in the foreground as well, which actually does just look like a bush, so I'll just bush it in. I think I'm going to try and add some trunks. And then there's this one, which is pretty much white, which is about here, which goes, oh, it's too big a trunk, but it's alright. I kind of just like the style of it, the vibe that's going on here. Yeah. Looks interesting enough for me. So we're going to take a pause, and then I'm going to probably do some sketches of smilodon later. Okay, I'm back, and I'm thinking my smilodon is going to be big, and he's going to be here, floating up here, so I'm just going to sketch him out. I'm going to try and do it. He's going to be roaring. With his big teeth out like that. They have quite a fierce roar, as you could probably imagine, having humongous teeth. And they were quite chunky, so almost like bear-like. I suppose you'd have to be. Wouldn't want to bump into one of these the wrong neck of the woods, that's for certain. Look very fearsome creatures. That's for sure. Very, very fearsome creatures. I'm not sure I got the proportions right, but we're going with it. I suppose the beauty in one of these is they've been extinct for a while, so no one's to tell you that it doesn't look like one too much. If you've got the big teeth, it looks like one, I suppose. And a good bit of muscles in there. Eyes are quite far forward. I'm really going to have to blot this out in some yellow. Really with my brushes. I'm going to get a yellow and a white and block it out. And then add the detail. I think that's the best. Or you can just completely block it out in white. That's probably the best method of doing this now, I think. So I'm going to go for a white and browny whitey orange coloured coat, but right now I can't really see where he is, so we're just gonna, I've kind of got the outline here, so we're just gonna go for just getting the outline in. Big arch on the back and then sloping down like that. Teeth, the mouth. I might even just add some red, just so I've got a bit of a clearer view, and I'm going to work back in over this with some thick paint and a smaller brush, I think. let's just go for it. Let's just go for it. Let's go at it. It's kind of gonna blend into the surroundings a bit with the yellow. Maybe that's what they did. They were like had actually quite good camouflage this time of year for hunting and stuff. I think probably a bit dark around the. There's too much water on this brush, unsurprisingly. Whoa, almost lost it. There we go. Yeah, we're going to use the red just to get a bit of the idea of where the muscles are. Could even have him kind of in the half in the bush. And the mouth is very much, we're going to have the mouth sort of. Where's his ear? His ear is like here. I suppose it could be a female smilodon. Could be, but I don't know. You could probably tell by how big the teeth are or some shit like that. Excuse my French. And he must have had very big neck muscles, I reckon. I think my plan is actually for this is get all the colours in, and then I'm gonna go over him in some fine liner to bring out the detail, which would be a cool idea. Just thought of doing that now because I was thinking about going over it and just using a black brush. think I might be able to just, once it's dry, just pick out bits with a fine liner. His teeth are a bit yellow, so there we go. Darker bits under his belly. Dare I say it, I think I'm going to let that, do I want to let that dry and just add in the detail? I think I will just let that dry and add in some detail in black once it's dried, so I think that's the plan. Right, now it's time for the sort of polishing touches to my smilodon we've got here, and all I'm going to do is add some detail into the face and some of the surrounding body parts. And it's got a big nose, actually it's quite a small nose, probably doing that too big now. Put his nose in like that. It's a bit of darkness around the mouth there, and that's one of his front tooth. Can I add it? For his teeth, it's just to make them stand out a bit. Make them look like proper sabres. Add in some tones for the darker bits where he's growling from. He's got his eyebrow up here. His eyes are striking right here. He's got brown eyes because of reasons. That doesn't look right to me now. His eyes are actually yellow, so there we go. They're in the wrong place, but anyway, hey ho. Maybe they just look like they're in the wrong place. We did have his ear like here. I think it's a bit further back. Really not happy with these eyes. They don't look right to me. I've really completely ruined the picture now. Yeah, it does happen. It can happen with some pictures. Doing a bit too much. I used to say anyway, I'm going to have to paint over that bit of his eye because it's not quite right to me. There's this bit here, it's just too big. I'm going to have to go over that. Still got some yellow, so I can, yellow and white, I can go into that, work into that, that's fine. As if we think it's not good. So kind of, got to be honest with you, I'm not a huge fan of it, so that's alright. Sometimes things work in pictures, sometimes they don't. Actually, I think I just need to add a bit of brightness on that bit. It's quite dark on his belly. It's got black eyes. Let's just pick a bit of this yellow up. That looks more like it. That does look way more like it. So I think the problem is actually his eyes are higher up. They're actually higher up. There we go. You know what, I'm pretty pleased with that now. We're going to sign it. And that's that.